Okay, this is standard 2B, and today we are going to look at the development and impact of Hinduism and Buddhism on India, and we're going to talk about how Buddhism spread out of India and into the rest of Asia. Okay, starting first with Hinduism. So Hinduism is our oldest world religion that is, still in practice today. Hinduism came along before any of the other major religions: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, and Buddhism. So Hinduism started as a collection of religious beliefs, and it developed slowly over time. Unlike our other religions that I just mentioned, there is no founder of Hinduism. Okay, there's no Buddha or Jesus or Muhammad that we can point to. Some of the first foundations of Hinduism are the Vedas that the Aryans brought into India. The Vedas are Hinduism's earliest sacred texts. Other sacred texts in Hinduism are the Upanishads. So eventually people wrote down their interpretations of the Vedas, and those interpretations themselves became sacred texts in Hinduism. So a couple of important concepts in Hinduism that you need to understand. The first one is called moksha. And moksha is a state of perfect understanding / release from reincarnation. And we'll get to reincarnation in a second, but you need to understand what moksha is. Moksha is basically the goal of Hinduism, okay? All Hindus are hoping to achieve moksha at some point in their existence. Another important concept is the Atman. So in Hinduism, the Atman is the soul. Your soul is part of a larger world soul called the Brahman. So all of the souls together as one are the Brahman. Okay, everybody's Atman is part of the larger Brahman. We also have reincarnation. So this is the concept that your soul comes to earth again and again in different lives. So you're born again and again until moksha is achieved. And basically the idea is that you will continue to be reborn, and hopefully you will be rising in closeness to perfection, and then eventually you achieve that perfection and moksha. Karma is a concept in Hinduism that affects your next reincarnation. So karma is the good or bad deeds that you commit, and those will affect where you are reincarnated in your next life. So if you do good deeds, you may be reincarnated in a higher caste in the next life. But if you do bad deeds, you may be reincarnated in a lower caste. Karma can also affect your health and your wealth. So karma, again, the deeds that you do have a big effect on how you will be reincarnated, as well as your current circumstances in this particular life. So Hinduism strengthened the caste system. The idea was that the upper castes had good karma in a previous life. That's why they were in the higher caste. They had lived a good previous life. And it's only the folks in the upper castes that even have a chance to achieve moksha. Females who in ancient Hinduism were not highly regarded. The Shudras, who are the laborers, and the untouchables, who are people that aren't even in the caste system. They are so despised by the Hindus. All those people must have had bad karma in a previous life, according to the idea of the caste system. So, again, if you were a female, or if you were a laborer class or caste, a Shudra, or even worse, an untouchable, you must have done bad. You must have done badly in your previous life to end up in this particular current circumstance. Hinduism plus the caste system dominated every aspect of an Indian's life. Okay? Hinduism and the caste system dominate and control what Hindus eat, the way they ate it, their cleanliness, who they could associate with, how they would dress. Hinduism is led by gurus and Brahmins, who are the priests. And you can see a picture here on the right of what is either a guru or a Brahmin. Okay, so Hinduism today is monotheistic. So Hindus today believe in one God, but that God can be found in many different representations. Ancient Hinduism, there were three parts. There was Brahma, the creator. There was Vishnu, the protector. And there was Shiva, the destroyer. And there were many other gods in Hinduism. And it's what I would say was polytheistic for a long time. But as thousands of years have passed, Hinduism has become more monotheistic in its concept. One God, one supreme force, but represented in many different ways, like Brahma or Vishnu or Shiva or any of the other gods that are part of the Hindu pantheon. Okay, our other religion that developed in India is Buddhism. So Buddhism also started in India, and Buddhism does have a founder. So the founder of Buddhism is an Indian prince by the name of Siddhartha Gautama, or Gautama, depending on how you want to pronounce that. Interesting story behind Siddhartha. According to legend, he was born into a royal family, so he was a prince. And on his birth, there was a prophecy I should say prior to his birth, there was a prophecy that his birth fulfilled. Some of the interesting things, according to the prophecy, an individual that had these really long earlobes and kind of this yellow tinged skin and webbed feet and hands, I believe, off the top of my head. All these different things that had been prophesied came true when Siddhartha Gautama was born. So he was fulfilling that prophecy. And because of that, his family kept him isolated. They wanted to keep him away and protected because he was going to be a great political leader someday, according to the prophecy. So Siddhartha grew up in the palace, and he was never allowed out of the palace grounds or outside of the palace walls. But as he got older, he was very curious about the outside world, and eventually he did venture outside of the palace. So according to Buddhism, he made 4 trips outside of the palace. On the first trip, he saw an old man, and he had never seen an elderly person before, and it disturbed him. On the second trip, he saw sickness. He saw a sick person, and he had never known sickness before because of his isolation. On his third trip, he saw a corpse. He saw a dead person, and again, he had never experienced death because of his isolation. And then finally, on his last trip out, he ran into a holy man, a Hindu holy man, who was very much at peace. And so, because of this, I guess you could say Siddhartha had a lot of questions about religion. And so Siddhartha ended up wandering around India trying to find religious truth, trying to learn from different individuals and figure out, this whole religion thing. He was meditating under a fig tree when the answer to his question finally came to him. And it is at this point that he became the Buddha. So when the answer came to him, he became enlightened, and he became the Buddha. Buddha, it means the enlightened one. Okay, so Buddha is a title, not his name. Okay, so the basic Buddhism from Siddhartha's time, there are 4 noble truths. The world is full of suffering. And people suffer because they desire. The only way to end suffering is to end desire. And the only way to end desire is to become enlightened. So in order to become enlightened, one should follow an eightfold path called the middle way. And you can look into the details of that. I don't probably have enough time to go into all of it, but the eightfold path is the lifestyle and the thinking process that Buddhists should go through in order to reach nirvana. Okay, so nirvana isn't just a cool grunge band from the 90s. It's a goal for Buddhists. Nirvana is very similar to Hindu moksha. It's a release from selfishness and pain. Okay, again, Buddhists are trying to reach nirvana by following that eightfold path. Buddhism evolved like all religions. Eventually, there was an idea that many different people could become Buddhas. Buddhism became more of a salvation type religion, similar to Christianity. And because of that, it was much more easily and popularly followed. Okay, so Mahayana Buddhism is Mahayana Buddhism is the new type of Buddhism in which anybody can become a Buddha and achieve salvation, whereas Theravada Buddhism is the old original Buddhism as conceived by Siddhartha Gautama. So Mahayana Buddhism, it was a much more personal religion. Okay, and what I mean by personal is that you could have an individual relationship with Buddha. Okay, kind of similar to maybe Christians and Jesus, if that makes sense. Or, well, yeah, that's probably the best example. Because of Mahayana Buddhism, the numbers of Buddhists increased. Okay, so it's an easier way to be a Buddhist, and therefore more people became Buddhists. Buddhism is led by Buddhist monks and nuns. You can see some Buddhist monks there in the picture. All right, so this picture, I'm trying to go faster. I've only got a couple minutes left on my recording. This picture is basically showing you how Buddhism spread. Okay, if you follow the red lines, you can see that Buddhism spread out of India and into other places, specifically China, which has a big population of Buddhism today, Korea, and Japan. Buddhism also spread into Southeast Asia, again, a very big Buddhist area today. So even though the religion started in India, more people outside of India practice it than probably inside of India. All right, so how did that happen? Well, missionaries, okay? Buddhist missionaries went out into the world and they converted people. It also happened because of trade. When a Buddhist met a non-Buddhist and they were trading whatever goods they had, he might introduce him to Buddhism, and that person might like it and convert. Okay, so trade and missionaries caused it to spread to places like Sri Lanka, Burma, Thailand, Sumatra. Buddhism followed the Silk Roads to China. We'll talk about Silk Roads some other day. From China, Buddhism spread to Korea, and from Korea, Buddhism spread to Japan. Okay, so that's it on Hinduism and Buddhism, and we will talk about Chinese civilization next time.